Boston was one of the early and most important centers of the Krishna consciousness movement. There were only these few temples, and Boston was one of them. And it was an important center, with Satsrup Maharaj and one of the pillars of our society.
We're actually eternal spirit soul. We're meant to enjoy eternal bliss and be full of knowledge. And this we can only do when we get spiritual teaching.
With Radharani, our first woman and very strong devotee.
Krishna is everything. That's the whole point of Krishna consciousness, that there's nothing beyond Krishna. So everybody belongs with Krishna. Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure.
Boston is a really, wonderful place that Srila Prabhupada had walked all over. He also walked, downtown. And of course, he first arrived in America at Commonwealth Pier.
I met Giriraj Maharaj before he was even initiated. He was so enthusiastic, attending all the programs, was a Sankirtan devotee.
I first joined the temple at 95 Glenville Avenue. It was a storefront. It was small.
Just a few people, but spiritually strong.
At that time, we didn't have Radha Gopala, we just had little brass deities. But the deity worship was a little hard to relate to. But then I saw Satsvarupa do the deity worship. A responsible person, sober, pure-hearted, intelligent. And so seeing him do it, I thought, must be something to it. We found this 40 North Beacon, very big house.
At one point, Prabhupada gave the instruction that everybody should go out for kirtan, for chanting. At least an hour a day.
We used to go out on the Boston Commons. And a few devotees circulating in the crowd that gathered.
The Harinam party would also sell Back to Godhead magazines.
So that became a source of income. And devotees would spend hours and hours there. It was enlivening.
Devotees were all chanting in Boston Commons, and I was smiling. There was big crowds of people watching, and I was probably the only one smiling and swaying and going, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. The devotees saw that, and they started going, come to us, come and sing with us. So I went up to the devotees, I sang, I danced, I was in total ecstasy. And after that, I went up to one of the ladies. I said, you people are the most beautiful people I have ever met. I feel so wonderful. I feel so happy, like I've never felt before. She said, oh, thank you. We're inviting you to our Sunday feast. And she handed me the card.
Boston was always known for its amazing Sunday feasts, with subjis and sweet rice and halavar and nectar drinks. We lived from one Sunday feast to the next.
At the time, Boston was the biggest temple in ISKCON. ISKCON Press was there. They had more devotees than any other temple in ISKCON. We had little Radha-Krishna deities, big Lord Jagannath deities have been replaced. And we had a picture of Lord Chaitanya performing Sankirtan. That picture is still in the Boston Temple.
Prabhupada came in 1971, and he was rewarding the temple for persevering.
Satsvarup had requested that we get a larger set of Radha-Krishna deities.
In the temple at 40 North Beacon Street, we got word that Srila Prabhupada had sent Radha-Krishna deities by boat.
He had personally purchased them in India. They were identical to the Radha-Madhava brass deities he had installed in Mayapur.
And he was to come install them, and there were quite a number of us devotees waiting to get initiated.
It was his kindness to stop and visit Boston, which was now a smaller temple.
ISKCON Press moved back to New York. Jadharani and all the artists and everybody that worked on the press, they all went down to New York.
In the meantime, Radha Gopi Vallabha had arrived by boat when they finally got fully unpacked, and there they were, shining like gold, so effulgent and beautiful.
Such a wonderful atmosphere, though, knowing that Srila Prabhupada is coming and arriving, getting to prepare for him.
The time came for Prabhupada to come, and it was very, very exciting. Prabhupada flew to Boston from Detroit. A few devotees stayed back at the temple because it was the day for the Sunday feast, and we always had quite a large crowd.
This is the first time that most of us who were living at the temple had ever seen Srila Prabhupada in person. So we all went to the airport to greet him. We had a big kirtan. We were waiting for him.
We're waiting, and so many passengers are leaving, and no Srila Prabhupada. And all of a sudden, there he was in the door of the plane, just effulgent like the sun. And he walked down the steps.
He came in, and we were all just having this wonderful kirtan as Srila Prabhupada was walking through the airport, overwhelmed by having finally seen him.
We all offered our obeisances. We went right back to the temple because there were so many guests waiting to meet Srila Prabhupada.
When Prabhupada first arrived, he came to the temple and lectured and met with the devotees afterwards.
I had heard him on tapes before, and I had read his books. I can remember having that understanding that it was his temple. He had always been there. His presence, it was always felt there.
And so then the next day was, in the morning, was the installation of Radha Gopi Vallabha.
And it was like a combined ceremony. The same fire sacrifice, installed Radha Gopi Vallabha and did our first initiation.
Mother Gauri assisted him in that, and Satsrupa.
I sat beside him as he guided me in arranging ghee, yogurt, and milk.
Srila Prabhupada, who was sitting on his cushion, he said, in the four corners, people should be reading from 4 different scriptures. He said, go get me the Brahma Samhita. And Srila Prabhupada started chanting the Brahma Samhita prayers, reading the book.
The installation was quite simple. They were bathed in some stainless steel tubs.
Allowed me to pour the liquids in Gopi Vallabha, golden forms standing before us.
After the Abhishek, Srila Prabhupada asked for Radharani. He personally started drying and polishing Radharani.
And they became extremely shiny and effulgent. Prabhupada dressed them, both of them, and put on their crowns.
worship of Krishna is just being grateful for everything that he gives, giving us the holy name. Radha Gopi Ballabha has agreed to appear. And then there was another initiation in the evening. And this time, Karandar performed the fire yagya. Of course, Srila Prabhupada was sitting right there. I remember watching him chanting.
Radha Gopi Vallabha were already installed when I first started coming at the end of '72. Although it was cold and austere in Boston, it was really a family spirit. That's what I remember most about the temple.
They had, so much love for Srila Prabhupada. I really wanted to be part of it.
Everybody just embraced the opportunity to do whatever was necessary to keep the temple going. In '74, somehow or other, we purchased this building on Commonwealth Avenue.
It was a very exciting move.
We had to be out of that building by a certain date, but it wasn't ready to move the deities. We got everything together here for receiving the deities, and so there would be no disruption whatsoever to the deity worship. In between their morning artik and their lunch offering,
The deities were transported in the back of the station wagon.
Adi Keshava took Gopi Vallabha and Sumati took Srimati Radharani.
I remember sitting back there with them. When we first got there, they were on a temporary altar, but on the second floor, while the altar downstairs was being prepared in the temple room.
There was no hiccup. The deities got their next artik, they got their next offering.
He is able to take service from you in any way. Therefore, you have to approach him authorizedly. For your facility, Krishna has appeared before you as stone, as wood. But stone is also Krishna. That requires little brain. He can take service in any form. That is absolute. Because the stone is not different from Krishna. It is Krishna's energy. Just like a small letter box. You put the letter and it will go 10,000 miles away. How it goes?
An idol means worshiping something as God, which is not God. The deity is God. It's not an idol in the sense of worshiping something which is not God as God, but it actually is God.
If you approach the deities as brass or stone, they will remain brass or stone. But if you approach him as Krishna, then he will reveal himself to you that he's Krishna.
So Krishna is being taken care of very nicely. Krishna is eating so many preparations. There's morning, there's breakfast, there's snacks. And also the deities' clothes are being changed regularly. Those who come here to see these deities, they can get a nice understanding about Krishna consciousness. They can become evolved, very elevated.
That's the idea, that we can come and serve the deity of the temple. And that will engage our senses in the Lord's service.
Radha Gopi Vallabha have impressed many devotees and had made people have a change of heart. They are very real, very kind, very merciful, and confirm that they are not statues. Radha and Krishna are there, so we can render service to them. That is why they're there. So we get this great opportunity to serve them.
To be attached to your deity, that kind of attachment leads to love and deeper love and wanting to serve them nicely. I don't see anything wrong with being attached to your deity.
There's a particular kirtan I'll never forget. Radha Gopi Vallabha gave me that glimpse as an encouragement, as an opportunity to show me their eternal pastimes in Goloka Vrindavan. They personally were reciprocating.
And so that reciprocation with the deity is something we experience, because we were not, like I said, we weren't born into this culture. We weren't doing it because we were expected to do it. We felt something from doing it, and that inspired us to continue doing it.
That a lot of people became devotees here in Boston. They went to LA, they went to different temples all over. And the deities are still here, and their mercy is still there. And they're so wonderful.
My dear Sri Sri Radha Gopi Vallabha, as you stand there with your benediction glance, with your ever beautiful Radha at your side, with your many eager servants looking with love-filled eyes, we come to realize that you have been the one constant in Boston, of which the majority of that time has been right where you stand, right now. You have always been there for us, your servants, to look upon, to make offerings to hear our prayers, to accept our worship, to simply be in your presence, the lords of the brownstone. The two of you majestically stand there looking out at Commonwealth Avenue through the seasons, years and decades, sometimes in a packed hall, sometimes alone, or with a few, or a one. You are always there upon that unique marble altar, with Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra on your left, and Gaurnitai on your right, with Vishaka and Lalita glowing on the sides, the arches behind, the mirrors above, your divine sanctum, the Lords of Kam Ave.
The deity is a bridge between the material world and the spiritual world. And with the deity, we're able to use objects in the material world and spiritualize them by offering them to the Lord in His deity form. And our consciousness becomes purified, our senses become purified. And by serving the deity, we get to replace our material samskaras, which are in our heart, with spiritual samskaras, so that eventually we will be fully imbued with Krishna consciousness.
When I saw Radha Gopi Vallabha and the devotees, somehow or other, it was clear to me, this is where Krishna wants me to go.
I loved serving Radha Gopi Vallabha. Honestly, those were the happiest years of my entire life. was serving them. I loved getting up in the morning so I could go wake them up, and I would be the last one to bed at night because I would put them to rest. My days were just so completely full with service for them. And all I know is they reciprocated by making my heart very happy to be doing whatever service I was doing for them.
I remember coming into the temple and dancing in the kirtan and looking at Radha Gopi Vallabha. It was like the whole spiritual world opened up to me. I mean, I was looking at Radha Gopi Vallabha, and it's almost like they'll be the personalities to accept me.